This streamer was there all pretty, with loads of people watching the live, when suddenly the filter failed. It seems reality came to the surface. There are many clips that are even funny and comical of filters failing during lives in China. And I understand the audience's shock because the difference between the filter and real life is quite big. But how do they do it? How do they transform that round face into a really thin one and end up looking like internet gods? Well, some people have shared the tutorial. Take a look here. Step 1. Turn on the main light and the face light. Then you have to adjust the face to make it oval and be careful to ensure the makeup is in the right place. Now the second light, the chin's pink light. And to make everything perfect, we place a light above the head. This one here. The transformation is so radical, you can understand why the Chinese internet is going crazy over this. There were online comments saying things like, "Oh, these filters should be banned. They really think they look like this." Others commented, "Now I understand why streamers who exaggerate so much aren't afraid of relatives recognizing them. It's because, honestly, no one would recognize them anyway." This topic has resurfaced on the Chinese internet, and now there's even government involvement. Come with me, and I'll explain this gossip better. An interesting movement is happening in China right now. It seems the Chinese government and authorities have started to take action. They're launching what some people are calling an order without makeup. It's not exactly a ban on makeup use in the country, but it's a series of disincentives, so to speak. It's a series of measures and recommendations that Chinese authorities have issued for this type of streamer and the industry that produces online entertainment in China. The new recommendations basically say the following. Streamers of this type shouldn't use such heavy makeup, shouldn't induce excessive consumption from viewers, and shouldn't create spending rankings to highlight the person who spends the most money on their live. The government recognizes that this can be harmful to the person, and soon I'll tell you some quite curious cases about this. Besides beauty filters, there's also technology that modifies the streamers' bodies. You can make legs longer, proportions more perfect, make a person's skin clearer and more radiant. So it's like live Photoshop. And many people question these government measures. Like, does the Chinese government care about filters and makeup now? Isn't that kind of silly? It's not quite like that. I'll show you how much this impacts society. And it seems the government isn't being so kind, okay? Apparently, they're not only concerned with the well-being of viewers and people's welfare. I can't assert anything, but there are some pretty interesting theories circulating online. Some people are saying that this recommendation might become regulation, and it's not exactly about morality. It's about protecting the people watching the live streams. The issue is more financial. Think about it. China is facing a real estate crisis. The country's economy isn't doing so well either. Consumption in some industries has decreased, and then there's a lot of money circulating in live streams and on the internet. But this money is generally going to big techs, to virtual companies, and not to the areas the government considers strategic or more important for the country. There are people who believe that, in fact, the authorities want to redirect this money. They want to bring it back to the economy they consider to be real, or at least better control where it goes through fines and regulations. And again, this is just a theory circulating out there, okay? But it makes us think a little, doesn't it? The most curious and dramatic part of this story is that behind this whole comedic and funny issue, there are real stories of people who got into a lot of trouble in this scheme. And when you hear these stories, it stops being funny. There's the story of a 60-year-old man who spent over 60,000 yuan in 1 week to become the top donor of a mainstream streamer. He says that the streamer would chat with him after the lives, promise things, and he got deeper and deeper. Of course, he had ulterior motives with the streamer, but it's quite curious how far someone can go for a blind passion for someone. There's also the story of other provinces, like a 62-year-old farmer who spent his entire life savings and even took out some loans just to keep sending gifts to a streamer. It's a pretty crazy thing to think about, right? And I don't doubt that it really happens. There was also a case being told about a daughter who discovered her father spent 50,000 yuan in 3 months. And that was practically all the money he and her mother had saved. When she saw the bill on the phone, she was in shock. There are many well-documented cases of this around here, There was even one where lawyers said that at least 3 or 4 people had approached them, saying they were deceived by streamers, and one of them lost over 800,000 yuan. There's also a case of a guy who was contacted by a streamer saying she wanted to date him, and over a year, he sent more than 300,000 yuan in gifts, and they met 4 times and didn't even hold hands. And according to the story, the streamer would say things like, "If you really love me, you have to prove it by sending money and gifts." And the guy fell for it. Until he discovered that she apparently had other boyfriends at the same time, each sending her 100,000 to 200,000 yuan. Not even dating on a dating app is that expensive. And again, there are many well-documented cases of this, of people who end up sending money to people on the internet, falling for the talk, for the conversation of internet folks like that, precisely about what they consider to be a very well-organized scheme. And some people said they knew how the training of these streamers worked in some agencies. And according to these people, the scheme worked like this. First, the streamers never accepted gifts or money through normal transfer. Always through the platform. And the reason for this is quite clear, okay? If she accepted a transfer through an account or something like that, the person could sue and try to recover the money. But if the money goes through the platform, it is divided between the platform and the agency, so it becomes a legitimate thing, and it's practically impossible to get that money back. It's like a scheme, but legalized. So it doesn't seem to be just individual misconduct, okay? It seems to be a slightly more well-crafted scheme. And look, all this is happening in a very specific context. The Chinese economy is not at its best. You have a real estate crisis, you have hard-to-find jobs, low wages, a lot of debt. And in the midst of all this, the entertainment industry is growing tremendously. And try to put yourself in their shoes. Why would you study for years to earn 5,000 yuan a month when someone who dropped out of school early to become a streamer can earn up to 1 million a year? This is generally what goes through the minds of young Chinese people. It's quite tempting, right? And here's the most ironic part of this story. Because the streaming industry in China has had problems for years. Problematic content, emotional manipulation of people. All of this has existed for quite some time. And they say that the authorities kind of ignored it, or at least tolerated all of it. And the reason for this, according to some analyses circulating on the internet, is because this model encouraged consumption. It generated traffic and created profit for Chinese platforms and agencies. And in a way, it kept a certain portion of the population distracted. It was convenient until then. But it seems that now, when the money starts going to the wrong place, when the economy weakens and they need that money circulating elsewhere, then concern arises and maybe even possible regulation. Some people think this is not just about protecting people, but about controlling the flow of money. But then everyone draws their own conclusions, right? And this issue of filters also has a very interesting cultural contrast because China has 5,000 years of traditional culture. More or less. In ancient culture, beauty was something that came from within, reflected nobility, spirituality. There was respect for the natural order. It wasn't about filters or heavy makeup. Traditional culture emphasized harmony. Being something authentic was a beautiful thing. And it's as if a person's heart, full of greed for money, can't be covered by any kind of filter. But then you look at reality now in 2026, and the contrast is quite big, right? And maybe you're not being scammed. In the end, it's hard to tell who is the victim and who is the villain in this story. The streamers who use filters and manipulate some people, well, many of them are also college students desperate for income in a problematic economy. The men who spend fortunes are often manipulated, but some also choose to believe in obvious fantasies. The platforms and agencies profiting from all this, technically, are operating within the law. It's a system where everyone is exploiting everyone, and if there is a solution to this, I honestly don't know. I don't know if banning heavy makeup and exaggerated filters. Maybe the real problem isn't appearance. Maybe it's a society where a person's value has come to be measured by the money they have, by status, and by appearance as well, where honest work and self-discipline are kind of losing their meaning. And until that changes, people will keep looking for ways to escape, whether through filters on social media or through virtual fantasies that only serve to take your money. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think these government recommendations will change anything? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you very much for watching up to here, and I'll see you in the next video.